Hi, I'm the Dogmatic director. I gripe about shit. Why the hell else would you be here? And I'm going to be looking at the movie Ready Player One. If you haven't seen the movie, I suggest you go watch it, or don't. Just watch the video, get it spoiled for you. I'm not your dad, I don't care. So on March 29th, 2018, I got to go see Ready Player One on its opening night. And wouldn't you know, it was not all that great. I mean, it is a Steven Spielburg movie, and he hasn't released anything groundbreaking for a while. I wouldn't expect anything less. But there's something about this movie that I think was kind of missing. It certainly seemed like they were trying, not hard enough, but I think they were at least trying. What went wrong is the question. There were certain things about this movie that were just absolutely painful to sit through, and some things that were actually fairly decent. So what goes where? Let's talk about that. The story takes place in the Oasis, a virtual reality online MMO that everyone in the world is connected to day after day. Everyone's currency derives off of it, everyone's livelihoods around it. I don't think anyone really has actual jobs outside the main world. I think, everything just revolves around the Oasis. Because there's a lot of things in this movie that clearly indicate that the world's environment and economy thrive off of this game and the coins that you make inside the game. The story follows Wade Watts and his online character Percival as he and a ragtag band of other characters are teaming up to find a hidden Easter egg in the game that will give total control over the game to whoever finds it. Basically, your basic Doom setup. If whoever controls the Easter egg controls the universe.
He who controls the spice controls the universe.
And then, of course, you have the IOI, the evil corporation in this movie. They want the Easter egg so they can just take over the whole game and take over the world.
Of course!
It's typical Spielberg stuff. I would have expected nothing less from this. There are certain things that I think could have been worked on as far as plot goes. The first act is absolutely weak. There is no tension, there's no drive, everything just kind of happens. Things don't start picking up until the second act when things start blowing up and people actually start dying. And then I think things start to pick up from there. Second act is okay, there's a scene involving The Shining that I did actually appreciate. And the third act falls really well. Except the ending is just absolutely awful. I get it, it's a Spielberg movie, they've had cheesy endings before, but this one just kind of went overboard. The ending is just absolutely ridiculous. It's mindless, it's not very fun, it kind of anticlimactic, really, and I think it just kind of put a damper on the whole movie. But that's enough on plot in that regard. Let's talk about some of the stuff that I did appreciate in this movie. The CGI is fairly decent. I did like some of the things they did with special effects. A lot of the movie is computer generated, the characters, the worlds, everything, but for the most part they do look fairly good. The dance segment at the end of the first act is very well put together. It's very interesting. There's a lot of colors going on. I like certain characters' designs. I thought they looked cool. The worlds were fairly interesting as well. I'll give them that much. There are a couple moments in this movie where tension is held very well. Some of the action scenes are fairly decent. There's a lot of inconsistencies too, but I'll get to that. And the musical score isn't that bad either, although I think there are a few instances where some old 80s to 60s songs aren't incorporated all that well. Some of them are, but some of them aren't. I think We're Not Gonna Take It by Twisted Sister towards the end, I think that was the one I think was put in the best spot. At the same time, I think they could have used something different there. But overall, there's some interesting stuff to look at. I'd watch this movie again to see some of the smaller nuances there. But then we get to the things I don't like. Let's start with the acting. As far as Percival and Artemis go, they're fine. They've got some good chemistry between them. There are a couple moments where Wade's kind of deadpanned, or a bit airheaded in scenes that are supposed to be really tense or really dramatic. I think he just kind of gave up on those parts. And then there are other actors, like the actor for H, that I just absolutely could not stand. H was awful. She was just awful. She may have had some moments where she may have delivered a line one way, but her face just kind of stayed the same throughout the entire moment. And that kind of killed it for me. And that shows in the CGI as well. They used a lot of motion capture in the face for a lot of this. And it shows. it shows. Like, you can't blame the CGI on that one. The actor just wasn't that good. I think they should have fixed that. The pop culture references were fine in a couple places, but for the most part, they were just absolutely annoying. I did not see this movie alone. I took my fiancée Jolene with me to go see it, and she did enjoy it, but not in the same way that I enjoyed it first time around. If you were to ask me what my rating of this movie would be when I first saw it, I probably would have given it a 7. That's not the rating now, because I've had some time to sit on it and let it mull over, and I've had time to think. It's not the same now. She didn't get as many of the pop culture references, and unfortunately, the story of this, a lot of the movie thrives off of the pop culture references, and that's not good for a lot of your audience members that don't know where all these things come from. That's kind of an alienating kind of thing. Like, you can make a movie based around this kind of subject and not alienate your audience. I mean, Wreck-It Ralph did that. Sure, it had your references here and there, but they were mostly references most people would get. Like, we know who Sonic is. We know who Dr. Eggman is. We all know what Pac-Man is. The general audience member is not gonna know what Battletoads are, or Gundam, even. It was very refreshing to have someone with me that didn't quite know all of these things. It's nice to have a perspective from an audience member that is not as well connected to the things that this movie's trying to push for towards its audience. Because, god damn it! The entire theater was packed with nothing but weeaboos. I actually wanted to go to a different theater than I normally go to. I went to one in a smaller town because I figured the one I normally go to would be filled with even more of this kind of person. And so I decided, smaller theater. Maybe I'll be better off with it. But no, because the theater I went to in this one was smaller, and all 20 of these people sat in the same vicinity as me and Joe, and all of them collectively smelled like they hadn't showered in about a month. But that's not the most irritating part, mind you, and that's already very bad enough on its own. Every single time a specific pop culture reference came up, I'm talking Overwatch, Halo, Gundam again, every single time they would have a nerd-like orgasm. Like, I get it. Pop culture. You gotta have it in your movie. The book had some, the movie's gonna have some, you gotta have them to sell your movie. I get it. But just because a pop culture reference appears in something, that doesn't immediately make the movie good. It's actually very distracting for me anyway. Actually, if you really want to get into it, this introduces a few continuity issues. Right at the beginning of the movie, we see that every player that enters the game can play as whatever character that they want. It can be from movies, games, anime, whatever. I think I even saw the Martian from Looney Tunes in one of the opening shots. But one shot that we see when establishing these respawn gates that you go to different worlds, one of these characters, one of the players, is playing as Tracer from Overwatch, and she uses her zoom ability, the ability on Overwatch that allows her to zoom forward just a little bit. She uses it in the Oasis game. So, does that mean that anyone who plays as a specific character in the game can use their specific abilities? Like, what if someone were to play as someone who's overpowered in their canon? Like, what if someone spawns as Superman? They'd be completely indestructible. What if someone spawned as Saitama from One Punch Man? Not only would they be indestructible, but they could beat anyone with one punch. Kinda breaks the game. And there's this whole mechanic around, if you die, you zero out. So when you zero out. You lose all of your coins, all of your inventory, everything. So when you respawn, you start over from the ground up. But if you play as someone that's invincible and can defeat anything with one punch, there's no need to worry about that. You don't zero out. And is there a rule saying that you can't play as these specific characters? Well, that can't be a thing either, because James Halliday states several times throughout the movie that he doesn't like rules and that there are no rules to the game. If there's no rules, that means someone could be able to play as these characters, so how come we don't see them? Are there rules or are there no rules? Or maybe I'm just overthinking it. Maybe the movie's just showing us pop culture references that we're familiar with, and everyone else is playing as things that we aren't familiar with somewhere else, but not on camera, because that's not profitable. But then, it it turns out that that's not even an issue either, because you can use someone else's abilities even if you're not playing as them. Because we see Percival do Ryu's Hadouken move towards the end of the movie. We see him charge it up, shout, and blast it. What are the rules? I get, or are there no rules? Are there rules or are there no rules? If there are no rules, then why bother? If there are rules, what are those rules? There's so many things wrong with this setup that you can immediately break right from the beginning of the game that it kind of just makes everything else kind of pointless if you think about it. There's also a few casting choices that I did not like for this movie, and I'll give you an example. One of the characters in the book that I actually liked quite a bit, and keep in mind, I've read the book when it came out, and I read it about 3 years ago when I heard the movie was coming out. One of my favorite characters from the book was IROC, because I always envisioned him as this big, brooding, over-leveled character, someone that a menace to be, a force to be reckoned with. And in the movie, he finally shows up, and I'm thinking, oh, there he is. That's IROC. That's the guy. That's the guy I like so much. And he comes in. He's got this really awesome armor. He's got holes in his torso that kind of resemble a skull. He looks big. He looks menacing. And then he opens his mouth, and it's T.J. Miller. I'm not against T.J. Miller. I like him in How to Train Your Dragon, Big Hero 6. Basically those two movies. But T.J. Miller always plays the same kind of character. He's one of those people that the moment he opens his mouth, you know who he is. He has that kind of voice. If you were to take two characters that he's played and put them side by side, you wouldn't tell a difference, because it would just be the same guy. And they'd both be T.J. Miller. He would just play T.J. Miller.
I don't think we're gonna get that money. Doesn't seem like it.
You look like an avocado. Had sex with an older, more disgusting avocado. Yeah.
So to take this guy and put him in a position to where he's playing, to where he looks like this guy, is kind of infuriating. The way that this movie was cut, it's already 2 hours and 20 minutes long, but it feels like there's some things missing. Like, entire scenes are missing, because things are cut so abruptly sometimes that I have a hard time thinking that maybe something else was supposed to belong there or something. Because the whole first part just happens like that I felt like there should have been more establishing that. When it comes out, I would not be surprised if there's an extended edition that comes out, or a director's cut, because if it does, then I probably want to see that. Probably might not change my opinion, though. Overall, I really don't think that this movie did as well as it could have. I think there was a lot of kinks they needed to work out, and there just needed to be a lot of fine-tuning and recasting here and there. I know that they tried, but they didn't try nearly hard enough. If you were to ask me where I'd put this on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably put it at a 4. It's slightly under average, but it's not completely bad. There is some interesting stuff to look at. Watch it if you want. I'm officially done with adaptations at this point, and I'm gonna move on to something else. Thank you for watching, and bye.